Hi, Finghin. How are you? Nice to see you on Zoom ahead of our concert this weekend. So for those familiar with Drogheda Classical music, this is something that we do. We have a little chat with our artists ahead of their performance. So I'm delighted that on behalf of the quintet, we have Finghin Collins joining us for this Zoom chat. So Finghin, can you tell us how different your life has been over the last 3.5 months compared to what was planned and what was in your diary?
Hello, Pauline, and it's lovely to see you, even on this technology, which I hate so much. Well, viewers will be able to see, those who know me will be able to see the first big difference, which is my hair, which has grown rather a long way. Um, Really, though, getting down more seriously, it's been a very dramatic change. About the only thing that's stayed similar is, eating and sleeping mostly. Um, my life has totally been turned upside down. I had a lot of concerts, I had a lot of engagements, I had a lot of foreign trips. Um, I had a lot of events which I had planned as artistic director, Cellissimo in Galway being the greatest of them, but other things as well. As part of the whole Galway 2020 project, which was so severely hit, I had 2 trips to Russia, I had concerts in Switzerland, in France, in the UK, and instead of that, I'm here every single day. So it's been the biggest upheaval in my life, I would say, so far. It's been very dramatic. It's been very difficult. A lot of mood swings. Some days are good, some days are bad. Um, but I think now, as we're hitting 3.5 months, things are looking better. Things are more optimistic at the moment. We should seize these good statistics and work with them in our minds and think positively. And one of the positive things, of course, is that we're doing this concert this weekend in Drogheda, which is so lovely.
Like many people, the lives of musicians and artists around the world have faced the most challenging times of losses of income and the prospect of re-entering a very different landscape. But as a musician, recognizing that you've more than one role, but as a musician, what are your greatest fears about returning to work?
Well, it's still uncertainty is the big enemy at the moment. There's so much uncertainty about how we get back to making music with audiences. We can do it online, which is great. Thank God for technology. Um, but there's still a great deal of uncertainty about getting back to live concerts. We know that when we get back, we'll have severely reduced audiences, which brings challenges. Um, and I hope that that can happen soon, even if it's only playing for 40 people instead of 400. I think it's worth doing. I think the live experience needs to be brought back as soon as possible. Um, I would be fearful that, and it's awful to talk about fear because we shouldn't give in to fear, but I would be aware that our audiences are not all, but to a large extent in the older age category, and I think there's been a lot of um, fear actually. Although the government has done a terrific job, I think in general, nursing homes excluded. I think they've put a lot of fear into older people. For example, a healthy 70-year-old should not be afraid to go out. I don't think, and hopefully, when this all dies down, I just feel hopeful that older people won't be afraid to go out, won't be afraid to come to a concert. I know that organisers like yourself and many others, and hopefully the organisations that I work with too, will do everything we can to make the experience as safe and as enjoyable and as practically everything thought about, as much as we can. And so I really want to encourage people that when things start to happen with live audiences, and as long as the virus remains suppressed, I just hope that things can start again. Um, we have to, as people say, learn to live with the virus, I suppose, which is a difficult thing, but we have to. There are lots of ways it's affecting, even the simple thing of a page turner. Like I have, and for this concert now in Drogheda, I won't have a page turner, and I've got to work out 1 or 2 tricky page turns. So I apologise to viewers if they can hear a few dramatic lashes of the page going over in fast bits, where there's nowhere for me to do it. I haven't. I'm very slow to go down the iPad Pro route, where you have this enormous iPad on your piano and a pedal, which we've seen at the Wigmore Hall. We've seen it before that. Many people use it anyway, even pre-COVID. But I'm a traditionalist. I like to play from paper. I like to work with paper. I don't like working too much with screens. So that's one tiny thing. But it's our landscape, our cultural landscape, our lives are really changed now for the next few months anyway. And really, I suppose, until there's a really significant breakthrough in treatment or vaccine for this thing.
Mm.
And we just have to get our heads around it.
Yeah, interesting what you say about the page turn. I noticed that on the Wigmore Hall concerts each day that they have put up an announcement to say that either the page turner and the pianist are from the same household, or
Yeah.
These online concerts are great and they're interesting, but they throw up so many things that give people an opportunity of things maybe to worry about. That is the social distancing there, or, did they greet one another in an inappropriate fashion when they met up to rehearse for the first time? And we have to, I suppose, we don't know how long we'll be in this model of whether it's hybrid concerts, a little bit of online, a little bit of live, and hopefully we'll get back to the live with an audience soon. But I suppose it's about building up confidence in audiences that we as promoters and you as musicians are as aware and as nervous about this as everybody is, and therefore you're making and we're doing all the things that we are supposed to do to ensure that anybody returning to a live event is doing so in as safe an environment as possible. So as a promoter, with your other hat on between New Ross and Music for Galway, what do you see as the biggest challenges ahead?
Well, I don't mean to be negative, but there are lots of challenges. Music for Galway, it's been extremely unfortunate because this has landed in 2020, which is the European Capital of Culture, as people know. And so we had a very, very, very significant programme planned for the entire year. And now we're still awaiting full clarity on how we can deliver that, and within what time frame, and how do you redevise a 9-day cello festival with cellists from all over the world playing in small venues and big venues and orchestras and singers and choir, everything involved in it. How do you reimagine that, with social distancing? It's extremely challenging. I don't have the answer to that. Certain concerts can possibly be put up online. The challenge with the New Ross Piano Festival, no more than yourself to a certain extent, Pauline, is that we're a small voluntary group. The committee it's not a professional arts organisation. The committee won't mind me saying that very few of them are spring chickens. So they're, feeling the virus impact in many ways themselves in their personal lives. It's very challenging to imagine our piano festival in New Ross taking place. And in fact, a week or two or so ago, we've announced that it won't take place as planned. We have postponed it until 2021 in the hope that by then it will be possible. Having said that, we do hope to put on a recital with a live audience just to mark the weekend in September in New Ross. But that will bring its own challenges as well, managing all the protocols and safety and getting people in and getting people out and keeping them apart and hoping they'll come and all that. But it's particularly challenging for everybody, I think. And I mean, I'm thinking very much also of singers and people who sing in choirs and orchestral musicians who, at least I can play solo, I can play chamber music, socially distant. It's very difficult to imagine choirs and orchestras doing that, and operas and all that. So that's slightly worse affected, I would say. And, we just have to hope that breakthroughs in the scientific world, I suppose, will allow things to go back. Yeah. And in the meantime, people are working out some interim measures in which things can work on smaller scales and with some distancing, and different countries are trialing different things. So it's fairly early days. We're only emerging, I suppose, from that awful word lockdown.
Yes, but that in itself, gives encouragement, I think, to others. We possibly have greater challenges insofar as we're an island. And, for the most part, musicians who would be hoping to travel here, or artists hoping to travel here, would more often than not be reliant on air travel. And of course, that's going to prove challenges on the 14-day quarantine. If that stays, so I suppose there are challenges ahead, but looking to see what our colleagues are doing on mainland Europe, and, whether it's plants in an audience or whether it's actual human beings, it does give some encouragement to see how they're doing things. And maybe we've got opportunities to learn from them, and considering that many of them were a little bit ahead of the virus than us, so we can see them coming out of the lockdown, as you say. You were supposed to
Yes.
make this journey. Sorry to cut across. You were to make this journey on the 12th of March to perform this concert, and of course that was an important day in history for Ireland. That was the day that the decision was made to close down the country or encourage people not to travel, and difficult times. And none of us ever expected that it would last as long as this. But we have a personnel change in the group. We're delighted that Sinead Frost is joining instead of Constantine, who will be missed, of course. But given that he would have been required to travel from Sweden, it just wasn't possible to include him. But for you, as the quartet now with a new member, is it like starting over again in terms of rehearsals and getting to know the playing of one another?
Yeah, you're right. The 12th of March was a very signal day, and we were all geared up. I had my black clothes in the car, ready to go to Drogheda, and then everything collapsed. And we think of Constantine, who came over and rehearsed with us and was all set to do the concert, a wonderful bassoon player. But we're delighted that Sinead Frost is joining us, and I think we'll probably see more of that sort of thing with musicians, from Ireland, maybe being used more in this way too, certainly as long as the quarantining is in place. So yes, to answer your question, we have to go back to the drawing board again and rehearse from scratch with Sinead, and it'll do none of us any harm to do that. These are two wonderful pieces that I've played many times, and it's always a joy to dust them down and talk about them and go through them. And so we'll do that in the beautiful surroundings of your church in Drogheda.
And do you think that you will approach the concert in a different way, given that there won't be an audience, there won't be that feedback, there won't be that, I heard an interview the other day about the importance of having an audience, that it's as much about the silence of the audience, when you start to play, that moment of knowing that people are there, even if they're not, checking their phones, or if they're not rooting in their handbags or whatever, that just the very silence that an anticipated audience can provide. Do you know yet, or can you predict how different it'll be?
No, I don't think I can predict, but I think it'd be similar enough to making a recording in a way, like a CD recording or a television recording. It's not the same as having a live audience. You don't have the same adrenaline rush. You just I can't really say. I think, in a way we'll be very focused because we know that people are going to be watching, and they could be watching from anywhere. And I suppose in a way it's like doing a radio broadcast. It's a kind of a mixture of radio, CD recording, television recording. It's I think we'll be, I don't think it'll be vastly different because we'll all be focused. We want to give a really good performance to the people watching at home. It's just that I suppose at the end, there won't be that applause, or there won't be, well, we'll be spared the coughs that we've all been giving out about for decades in audiences. People arriving late, or,
we could do like they're doing at the football at the moment, and we could, simulate a packed church, and we can put in recorded sounds of coughs and sniffs and various things.
Okay, I didn't know they were doing that. Yeah, that'd be fun. But no, we're going to give this our best, and hopefully they'll be exciting and really, live sounding performances.
Great. Well, the two works that you're playing, the Mozart and Beethoven, two piano and wind quintets of the same instrument, very often paired together. But can you tell us a little bit about the two works, please?
Of course, yeah, they're both, as you say, for the same pairing of piano and four wind instruments: oboe, clarinet, French horn, and bassoon, which was an unusual combination of instruments at the time, and still is really, but it's a lovely combination. Works really well. Both works are in E flat major, which is a key that suits wind instruments particularly well. There's a lot of parallels between the pieces. They were written within 12 years of each other. Mozart's in 1784 and Beethoven's in 1796. In both, you'd have to say the piano gets a very prominent part. It's worth bearing in mind that at the time of Mozart's one, he was going through a very fertile and prolific period of writing piano concertos, and this is almost in many parts like a piano concerto. Beethoven, I would say there's some debate about to what extent he was influenced by the Mozart work, but he undoubtedly knew it. There are lots of parallels, as I say, the key, the combination of instruments, even the layout of the movements, the key of the second movement, lots and lots of parallels. But of course, Beethoven being Beethoven, although he's still a young man, he was 26, he still puts his imprint on the piece, and it's clearly somebody who's starting to think about form and pulling it all apart and doing more modern things. It's pulling the whole thing forwards into the 19th century. But to me, it still feels, the Beethoven one still feels quite Mozartian. You'd be forgiven if you switched on the radio for thinking one was the other, because they're it's early Beethoven and it's full of the joys of life. The last movement has that lovely hunting motif, which Mozart used so much. So they're both very joyous pieces, really. They have beautiful, elegant, slow movements. They're full of positive vibes, I think, which is what we need at this time, and very melodic and very lyrical and beautiful.
Well, thank you very much, Finghin. Appreciate, as always, having chats with you, even on this strange platform, rather than being in person with one another. But on behalf of your colleagues, Matthew, MacDara, Sinead and Cormac, we really look forward to seeing the five of you play, and audiences, no doubt, will enjoy the performance that's coming up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pauline. Thank you. I look forward to it too.
Bye.